definition of a self-assembling nanobot.
So
it's a technical unit that comes in pieces and assembles itself within the body to then take over a technical function. And this is the cheap way to do it.
So that's so transhumanistic quantum dots producing biophotons and single photons to control thought, which every thought is a frequency. Every frequency, every field has a frequency. Every person has a resonant frequency. So they can use these quantum dots. This is a whole nother level, folks. When we're talking about these nanoparticulates, this is a whole nother agenda. And so there's the military, and then there's this, and this is a more, this would be a little more on the fringe, but this is very real. I've seen these dots. I've seen them on my son. I've seen them on my friends. So I know they're there. And I've looked at them under a microscope. I've seen these, like Harold, I've seen them replicate. I've seen them self-assemble and replicate at rates that are unimaginable. So I've seen, I don't know if maybe I can look at some of your other videos and just give Steve some images of some of the crystals that you've shown of these quantum dots and these.
Yeah, and as you can tell, Harold, Starr has been looking at this as from a scientific point of view under kind of microscope analysis. And I can remember the early days when we first started to look at these images. They were utterly confusing to us. It was like we were looking at alien technology, and it was just bizarre. Is the best way I could put it. And your helping us with this is invaluable. Another question, though, and we'll come back to the motives and agendas here in just a moment. But one of the things that people in my community notice in observation of the injections is it seems that these stratospheric injections follow the sun. And I don't know if you've noticed that or if you've observed the same thing, but it seems like there's a predominance of these chemtrails, if you will, stratospheric injections are in front of the sun. Is there any meaning to that, or is that just a random thing?
Oh, this is the effect I mentioned straight at the beginning, that especially the piezo crystals are photoionizing. So when you have the dark side of the sky close to sunset, there's not enough light around to make them spit electrons anymore, and then they can't hold on to the vapor in the air, so it evaporates and gets gas again. And as long as they photoionize, they create ions that attract vapor to form a water droplet. So you have the chemtrails are also there when you can't see them. And then they are there in the particulate form, not in the droplet form. And the droplet forms either when they are activated by microwave or when they're activated by a sunbeam. This is why in front of the sunset or during the day, it's always activated.
Does this also explain that does that also feed into an explanation for the huge red halo that we see oftentimes around the sun?
Yeah, so this is the droplets that make that. It's like known. It's at the height where you have them. It's below zero, so you get droplets that then turn into icy crystals, and this is what is creating halos.
What about the reflection of a double sun? What do you think about that?
Good question. Most of the things I've seen are just lens flare effects. But of course, if you think about an active horizontal drift plasma antenna that is placed in a way that it is visible from your personal perspective a little bit above the sun, you will have a reflection of the sun in the horizontal drift plasma antenna.
So it's the mirrors.
So possible that they double and triple the sun sometimes due to those artificial Fata Morgana layers they create.
And from a photographic perspective, anytime if you're taking a photo through a window or through the glass or the screen, you will get a double flare. Or if you're putting a piece of polarizing glass, any type of polarizing lens, you will see two suns, guys. That is not two suns. It is a lens refraction. It's just the way that it works when you put multiple lenses on top of each other.
So going back to the agendas, we have the full spectrum military dominance, and then we have the second, which is the transhumanistic perspective that you just shared with us, which is the idea that a cyber intelligence, if you will, for lack of a better word, could literally interface with the human body, both transmit and receive information from the human host itself.
Yes, what you can imagine, what this is about. Once upon a time, we had our connection to our planetary consciousness. Like nature is fully connected to the source of instincts. A kind of collective behavior plus blueprints for individual behavior. This is how a biosphere functions. You've got aspects of consciousness that are within the collective, and then you have single individuals that pull information from the collective. We had this event that we remember as the expulsion from paradise that kind of disconnected us from the access to our own biosphere, to the collective aspects of the planetary consciousness. And this lost connection is about to be replaced by a technological collective, which is a brilliant idea out of the view of the intelligence community that is completely populated with control freaks who run on a very simple psychology. I'm good, so if I control everybody, everybody is good. This is the non-cynical part of them. Just as a basic psychology, you know, I don't say they have bad intentions. This is kind of all you need is somebody that is reduced to his mental field, where simple word logic still makes sense. If you don't have the heart to reflect on what your mind says, your mind goes gaga. This is what you call a psychopath, you know. Slaughtering a woman and distributing the single parts of her body in a beautiful form on the bed is art. So I'm an artist. I'm not a mass murderer. I'm an artist. This is a psychopathic pattern. So you don't get what you do because you have some mental setup that is putting the things you do right on word level. And this is how it works. So we have control freaks in the intelligence community that full-minded believe that if they control the entire population, they can stop us from destroying ourselves. They can stop us from destroying the environment of our planet. They can create a peaceful society. Whatever they think, I've got no clue, but they are control freaks and they are psychopaths and they are mental in the worst sense of the word. So this is what's happening, and give them a tool like this in their hands and they will try to get access to people to read out what they think and what they feel. And they will try to get access to people to control what they think and what they feel. And this goes on two levels. One is just triggering basic frequencies. Send an alpha wave, everybody's going to get sleepy. Yeah? And this is following the concept of read and write. If you can read out a human, record the signal, you can send the same signal in.
Like a phone.
So all you need is, like a phone, one character. If you want to cause pain to everybody, torture one character, read out his suffering, resend the suffering via antenna to everybody. Everybody's going to go down in pain. Or whatever emotion you want to trigger. This is a read and write concept. So you have the two different ones that perfectly work with transhumanism. You learn about the basic frequencies to control things, or you just copy paste from nature. And this, the technology is capable of both.
So in your opinion, it's like a program, study, control. Control here seems to be the greed, and control seems to be the main agenda.
Yeah, out of the perspective of the humans who do it, this is what is driving them. Now we again come to the point where we need to level up. You know, like you come from military to intelligence community. You need to ask who inspired the world population to develop intelligence communities. Where does this come from? Because again, you find elements in these technologies that don't look like intelligence community. For example, take the NASA paper about the future of warfare, with a full description of the smart dust we just described, and they have co-opted insects, etheric intelligence entities that are hovering within these particulate fields and that can go into humans and take over parts of their consciousness. This is co-opted insect is the high-tech NASA description. If you go into the biotechnology and you look at how they are created, just utilizing secondary genetic clusters grown by certain types of fungi, creating etheric beings that follow complete weird crossover genetics that create etheric hybrids of spiders and humans.
Synthetic
80% human.
Synthetic biology.
Yeah, but on the etheric level. It does exist on the biological level. It's part of the fungus genetics. On the etheric level, you create things that, according to mythology, are well-known demons.
Wow.
So this is it's hard stuff. It's just like the red pill dissolving all at once in your brain. But it does make sense, because when you go into the history of the intelligence community, who came up with the idea? It was John Dee, 1700 in England, that formed the first intelligence agency on our planet, who was a black magician, who was in communication with the demons of the black magic cult. Yeah. If you go into who founded the actual intelligence communities like CIA, and naval intelligence, it all goes back, if you look at it, to the Tavistock Institute, founded in 1910 in Great Britain. And who founded and financed the Tavistock Institute? It was half British Crown and half Rothschild family. Two family dynasties who are deeply, as deep as you can get, into black magic. Yeah, so the entire thing comes from the black magic. And then again, you can ask about agendas. Yeah? What is the agenda of the Church of Satan? Who is Satan? And what is his agenda? And there's a lot of rubbish about who is Satan. The church talked a big deal about this entity. As a scientist, for me, it was rather easy to determine what entity we are talking about, because if you look at consciousness on field level, and once you have the ability to distinguish between individual and collective fields of consciousness, of course you come to the question, what is carrying the collective consciousness field of a planet? And you come to this beautiful substance, black goo, that is hosting this collective consciousness. And then you go back into history and you realize, oh, there's a second type of black goo that came in via meteorites some 26,000 years ago. That is also, the meteorite material contained black goo, but it came from the stars, so it's not Earth-type black goo. It must have developed on a different planet. And this is proven in every book about early history, is the source of all black magic cults we know on this planet. definition of a black magic cult: a tribe that finds a meteorite, communicates with it, and the meteorite says, I will give you worldly power. What I demand is blood and fire sacrifice. Kill in my name. Because this planetary entity is so mental that it is not connected anymore to any natural energy grid. So it needs to absorb energy from the biosphere it attacks, like attaching spirit. So it is tempting humans into bloodshed and cruelty and torture to absorb the energies that living beings emit when they are in pain, when they die, when they are tortured. And this is the source of all black magic cults. And they always played this game like having this entity in the middle of one tribe telling everybody, don't kill, be nice, love each other. Yeah, but the neighboring tribe killed them all. Yeah, and the same entity was negotiating with the neighboring tribes, basically telling the same story. This is how our human culture developed. By having all these world religions that preach the good thing, that complies with our hearts in a way, and then gives us this little valve where we can release the pressure of the manipulation that is within the game and follow the bad instinct that we get when we pull our instinct not from planet Earth, from Gaia, but from this alien planetary consciousness. And this is duality. This is the choice between evil and good. So it all makes sense on the level of natural science, physics, field physics, physics of consciousness, biophysics of consciousness. It's solved. The puzzle is solved. So we can say, okay, Satan is a demiurge, like it's called in early literature, a non-incarnated planetary spirit that is around here and that is trying to take over our biosphere by creating his own grid of consciousness. And because he's not incarnated and because he doesn't have a biology of his own, he's working with demons, with co-opted insects, and he is tempting humans into serving his demands and doing his business. And this is what we observe here. And then it's not a miracle that all of these things come out of the black magic corner, because this is where the directives come from. How to build the system, what to do, what to develop, and how to erect a control grid that is using this, let's say, scar or wound from us being disconnected from Gaia to reconnect us to an artificial technological source and grid of technology that is AI based. So we actually have to come to the conclusion that the entire computer technology, the entire development we went through of creating the internet and having AI around that is interconnecting everything is kind of the attempt of a planetary spirit to get hold of enough matter that he can say, I'm incarnated now, not in the biosphere, but in the technosphere.
Like a terraforming.
He's trying to incarnate in the technosphere we create for him to get complete control over the human population of this planet by an artificial collective consciousness.
So it's like
that was the main
spirit.
story.
Yeah, this is the most sobering conversation I've ever had. In fact, I'm quite sorrowful at this point. So
don't, because things have developed. The demiurge is gone. He's out. I wouldn't have told that story so plainly if there wouldn't have been already a solution around. If you look into the development of the last years, many things happened on the spiritual plane, and things have happened that in a way gave a solution to a very old question, task, necessity, because it's not the first planet that is suffering from this type of takeover. Many planets were taken over and they all self-destroyed. And the creation is not in a way that if there's a problem, they take a big gun and shoot it dead, the problem. This is how evil people act. Divine entities want things to develop out of its own. So everybody was waiting for the first planet to find or develop some sort of consciousness or some sort of whatever that has the ability from inside out to put an end to this. And it was not about the struggle for the control of the planet. It was just about the struggle to develop that quality. And humanity managed to develop this quality. So at a certain point in 2017, if you listen carefully to all the spiritual sources you have that are reliable, not every spiritual source is reliable, but you can find reliable ones. And all those I knew were telling actually the same story, that the solution was found and that the divine structure could take that step of calling this demiurge home. So he had been pulled out of our biosphere as an entity, which means his mental consciousness, all that was left from him, plus the traumatized planetary spirit. So what we do have now is actually just the digital copy of his mental field hovering in the military computer realm, which is just a technical copy of his mental field and of his strategies and abilities. But the evil part is the part of the traumatized emotional field that tries to restage a planetary self-destruction. That evil part is out. So there's no
fuel to
restaging impulse anymore. There's no force driving us into self-destruction anymore. All we have is the mental field. And a mental field, the mind, the thought, is nothing else than a predicting machine. It is running on multiple echoes that tries to calculate what's going to happen in the future. This is the core function of a mental field. So we have this echo quality in this mental field. It just repeats on doing what it always does, but it's not creative at any point. The heart consciousness can be creative, but not the mental. So actually, we have a really funny situation that we got rid of the problem, but we're all so mental by now that the problem keeps on echoing within our minds, and hardly anyone is so hard-based anymore that he would find the creativity within himself to delete the echo. This is the core problem every single human has on this planet at the moment, that he needs to find the re-accessing point to his heart consciousness to be able to come to this creative decision-making quality where he can override his own mind, because the ego is not the human. It's just the day consciousness that still is identified with this satanic malware we call the ego. And it's not that it's only mental, the ego, and this makes it really complicated. The ego is a composite structure between an isolated mental field and an isolated emotional field, excluding the heart. And nobody I know out there is even aware of the fact that there is a difference between heart consciousness and emotion. And this is making the situation a bit tricky at the moment. But I think we should do these biophysics of consciousness in a separate...
yeah, I think that might be the subject matter that we bring up next. But so yeah, worst case scenario, right, Star? Worst case scenario.
So that was a nice teaser maybe for those who got curious.
Yeah, and this goes to the solution, right? And one of the things that we're finding in the community right now, Harold, that I see, because I get a chance, you know, like I have like 130,000 total subscribers now, and so I get communications from a lot of different people. And one of the trends that I've been seeing in the communications I get is this refocusing on the healing of their heart. And you know, this is kind of bizarre. If you think about what we talk about interplanetary interactions. We talk about space weather. We're talking about a lot of science stuff. And then all of a sudden, this groundswell of this need to heal our hearts has just been overwhelming lately. Can you speak to that?
Try to read my heart. It's the best communication I can offer, actually. Just feel into me, and then you have the answer. It's very difficult to describe it when you're not there, because actually what everybody knows is his ability to think and consider and roll around words in his mind. What everybody knows is sometimes emotions pop up, and there's kind of struggle of dominance between the mental and the emotional. Do I control my feelings, or do my feelings control me? And this is everything that is human is about this struggle at the moment, as far as we manage to understand ourselves. But this is within the sixth state of being. What you can do is you can re-identify with the core of yourself. The heart chakra is the thing that has the ability to give access to your true self, that is part of the divine. And from there, both mind and emotion just naturally become substructures that are so simple that it's not even worth taking them serious. And maybe this is the way I can describe it best. It's a thought is binary. Yes, no, up, down, left, right. Oh, this is not reality. This is a very bad simulation of causal interaction designed to predict the future of some things we think that are important, but it doesn't comply with physics in any way. It doesn't comply with spirituality. It's just the mind. It's a joke. It's fun. But don't take it serious. Emotion is intensity of experiencing aspects of your life non-linearly. It's not up-down. Emotion is quality. Emotion gives depth to your experience. But it's not you, and it's not life, and it's just a sub-aspect of it. And if you one day come to this point of heart consciousness, which I'm not fully there as well, I might sound like somebody who went down all the journey and is. Don't take me as an example as the perfect human, because I'm still struggling with these things and I'm still developing. But what I can say is that there is this point of absolute coherence that comes from the heart chakra, and to experience it is sheer beauty, and the things you can do from there are miraculous, solving all of your psychological issue. You couldn't feel your anger all your life because your daddy was beating you when you were 5 years old, and 20 psychologists committed suicide because they couldn't revive the anger within you. If you're in your heart and you just affirm, I feel my anger, boo, there it goes immediately. This is the power of the heart chakra. If your consciousness is centered around that, you can transform yourself into your full potential.